AM it's a hard job these days. It is not just transactional. To do it right, with all of the competition that's out there, it's reselling all the time. So we've got to invest in AM the same way that we invest in new business. I so often talk to other leaders across the board and like, yeah, our KPIs are definitely, you have to have 6 of these, 7 of these, rather than how about you just have one of these that's super successful. We need to take our thoughts and learn how to use AI to be successful, because our competitors are, and those that are doing it better than we are.
Do we even give enablement to AMs? Do they get any budgets for getting better these days? Hey Tim, how are you doing, sir?
Hey Michael, thanks for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. Look, I'm extremely excited. Before we hit, record, I said that to you because we just hired an AM, and again, I'm trying to learn as much as possible, and who better than you? So, again, it's going to be a good conversation. But before we get started, we want to get to know you a little bit more. Tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, and what you're working on these days.
Yeah, so I have 20 years in sales leadership experience, varying all the way back to my college days. I started out in retail management while I was going to school, and really never left it. Just kind of got the bug for leadership in that through that experience. And then the last, I'd say, 12 to 15 years, I really dove deep into the account management side, business to business, and focusing not only on account management, but CS as well, taking some time and done that and learned both sides of that post-sales experience. And happy to be here talking to you about that today.
I love that. Look, because you've seen both sides, right? Sales and post-sales. I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation because we can even explore the dynamic between these two teams. But for our clarity, let's talk about CSM versus account management. Let's just set the stage that way. Can you tell us a little bit more about these two?
Yeah, I think that's an evolving conversation right now. I think that there's different versions of that in all the companies that I've worked with. And in my previous company working in as enablement, I got to see so many different versions of what a post-sales community looks like. And I think what I see the market shifting to is that CSM becoming more revenue generating alongside the AM, whether that's lead generation, professional services if you're in some kind of tech field. But it's not just that. Customer success, I think, used to lean into that customer service motion. Whatever you need, we're going to do it. We're going to be your technical support, your go-to person. And now I think that there's, I think most companies have realized that becomes a cost that they've got to get some type of return on. So there's definitely a push to have different selling motions for both sides of AM and CSM.
Interesting. So let's focus on CSMs and AMs. Can you tell me, what's the main differences when it comes to revenue generating, motions? Because you said CSMs right now companies are thinking about maybe lead gen. So can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think that if you take CSM and just what its title, customer success, it's all about that adoption of product. It's all about making them do more with the product that they have. And so what they're going to be selling is selling to what's already been installed. And that AM is going to take that ball once they're successful, and they're going to be doing that expansion, that upsell, and talking about industry expertise and applying that strategy and individualizing it to the company needs and saying, great, you're successful here with our first product that you purchased. And now we're going to progress you through product 2, 3, and 4. To make you whole. I think that's really where we're seeing that the AM becomes that advisor for the future, and the CSM helps ground that, whether you want to call it a renewal, just customer success in their current product. Those CSMs have to make it renewal ready, so that becomes a foregone conclusion when the AM comes to renew it.
Okay, I love it. So, at what stage of a company, when should we say, hey, now we need an account manager? Because not everybody can afford having, both organizations, not only because of the upfront cost, you have to manage it, right? You have to manage these organizations. When?
Yeah, that's a tough question. It's certainly you have to build that base and sell. You have to sell something before you can manage it. So it is definitely. I think a lot of companies are trying to leverage more of an account executive role at this time, where it's selling and managing. Um, and I think that that's sustainable for a period of time in your beginning stages of your startup or whatever it is, and it's necessary just for financial constraints.
Yeah.
But as soon as you are viable to bring in that account management team, it is so important. Protecting your base, to me, I've seen two sides of that coin. One where the base is very quickly getting eroded because you don't have that piece in place, and then you're just always filling your funnel with a big hole in the bottom of your bucket, just watching that business fall out. It's a very delicate balance. I'd say if you've got to set your plan up for 1, 2, or 3 years, whatever that is. And you've got to hit those targets for new business, and then you've got to transition it so that those renewals keep you going. And there's AM is so underappreciated. So I would just say I just want to put my plug out there for all my AM friends. It's funny when you think about it. You look at in any organization when you get a new logo. And you win that new logo. What does everybody do? From the CEO on down, they're all cheering and rah, rah, rah. But when you renew something, they're like, checkbox, you're done. You got it.
You
We
just
already
did your
sold that.
job.
You just
Yeah,
did your
makes
job. But AM it's a hard job these days. It is not just transactional. To do it right, with all of the competition that's out there, it is new sell. It is reselling, reselling, reselling all the time.
That is absolutely correct and on point. And I want to call it out too, because when we are looking at our revenue orgs, it's historically been this way, still the same. And again, my hope is with everything, this AI transformation, things will change regardless of whether we like it or not. SDRs are not appreciated. Who booked the meeting? How about marketing? Who did all these touch points? How about product? Building a product that is sustainable, what people want. So we need to look at our go-to-market as a whole, and we talk about it. We always talk about it loudly, like, yeah, we are all together. But when it comes to actually, tapping on your shoulder or truly, appreciate, we tend to again really focus on who brought the new logo, and that idea is being challenged, I would say, past 2 years, and we see even more of that happening right now, especially with the fact that again, tiny startups, pop up, and everybody all of a sudden have access to information, to contact. How do you want to compete? How do you really want to compete over a new logo? Yes, it's part of your motion, or maybe the attention should go to your existing customers, especially when we talk about like more, enterprise space, because the opportunity is there, and you let it just, you know, go away because we don't have the skill set, we don't have the manpower, we don't even have a system to really walk through motions. So I want to, I want to get your idea on this. What's happening right now in the market, like in terms of if you're comparing with what you've seen 3 years ago, even 5 years ago, compared to today?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think that it's got to be a mental shift for leadership and organizations. The cost of customer acquisition has always been on that new logo. So we know
Yeah.
how much we're going to spend. We know how much it costs, and we're going to invest, invest, invest. And what AM was seen as is pretty much other than the headcount, somewhat of a free service, some passive marketing that goes to them, some reach out from the AM, and then they just renew, maybe upsell, expand. And now with these AI startups that are coming in, they're taking what these legacy companies have built, these robust tools that have evolved through the past 10, 15 years into these monstrous giants. And then in a few months, they're able to spin up the basic core functionalities of what that product does, make it cool, make it simple, make it pretty. So they're coming at those big companies hard, and they're coming at them less expensive. So we've got to invest in AM the same way that we invest in new business. It's a lower factor. I don't know what that factor is, but there is a cost to it now, and marketing. That is investing in your talent. The talent that you hired 5 years ago in AM, if you haven't invested in it, they're not the talent that you need today.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to train them differently. They've got to be able to speak a different language to your customers than what they spoke before. It's no longer just transactional, and I think that's where AM was before. It's just get that paperwork signed, just get them to renew for 12, 24, 36 months on their subscription, all those things. And now it has to be really a strategic art, and that's a big investment to make for companies. And so, but that's the way of the future. Protecting your base is something that has to happen to continue to grow.
Hmm. Look, I think we are sharing the same sentiment because we are an AI first company. We're tiny startup, and we see sometimes we actually win deals against giants. And to your point, if the core is working perfectly, if you give good service, if you have the capacity to actually treat them with white glove, as we used to always say. So why not choosing actually a startup that is sustainably doing this for number of years compared to an legacy solution? But I think the most important part of what you said is your people will be your competitive advantage. And maybe we overstack on marketing, A orgs. Right now we see the shift. Maybe we can show that differentiation in how we actually treat them by walking them through a process beyond just, hey, did you finish your module? Or, hey, the contract is up in 3 months. Okay, this is really interesting. Now, let me ask you this. You said if you had an AM 5 years ago, maybe you don't need them right now because things are changed. What makes a great AM today?
Yeah, I think that AM role of the past was really described as somewhat of a hybrid CSM, but more on the service side than success side. And it was about the commercial aspect of it, the contracts and all of the things that AMs are responsible for, and just it was learning the product and all of those things. And now, what's important is learning the customer. So if it's speaking a different language to your customer, especially when it comes to finance. And everybody talks about ROI. Even ROI is becoming stale to our customers. They've seen that everybody learned we've got to show ROI. So guess what happens? Every company comes out with, here's our ROI slide. You can do 10 times better, and then nobody ever does 10 times better. So it's got to be a different story that you're telling around ROI, and you've got to individualize it. And that's a tough skill. That's really what pre-sales, that go-to-market team for new business used to be able to do. And, that was their skill set, and that needs to transfer down so that you can tell an ROI calculation that is very personalized to the customer, and also speaking to, hey, this is how it's going to help you today, but I understand your growth plan, Mr. CFO, Mr. CEO. I understand what the next 3 years are going to look like for you because you told me, and I looked at your financial statements. We've had this discussion. Here's how we're going to grow with you. And that is not an easy skill to train, and it is not an easy thing to deliver on. So we really got to upskill all of our account managers to be able to get to that place.
What's so interesting about this? You look at even sellers today. I start with myself. To your point, it's a hard job to do. You can claim that you can actually do it, but people are less patient. They got burned before. They don't even want to engage with salespeople. And really getting into those conversations, getting that early permission or positioning yourself as a trusted advisor who understand their space, understand their language, they understand their problems, then you get that permission to get to those conversations. And it's really, really hard. It's a really hard skill set. And we tend to actually, spend more time on training enablement for our sales team. And they're still struggling doing this. When it comes to AM side of things, do we even give enablement to AMs? Do they get any budgets for getting better these days?
I think the companies that are doing right are allocating budget to it, and you can be late to the party on this one. You can do it now. You can start now investing in those, but having some type of sales methodology to start with that focuses around your customers and your goals. That's super important and foundational, I think. And we see that again, that has always been foundational for pre-sales, for new business. And it is something that has been then dabbled in post sales. And I think you just need to go all in with it. And you need to make sure that the people that you are hiring are able to articulate that back. It's not something it's a one and done, and it needs to become cultural. I've seen so many of these sales methodologies that are brought in, and they do this huge training on it, this big investment one time. And then 6 months later, nobody can remember what they talked about or what they're supposed to be doing because it doesn't become part of your culture. That's the rule of law there is you invest and then it fails to implement. And so I think that that's where we need to make a cultural shift, is that it needs to be all in, all departments, everybody speaking that same language. We agree on it.
That's absolutely correct and on point, because that's pretty much what we even do as a business. We say, hey, you roll out a tool, whether our tool or a process or a sales methodology. When was the last time you actually got adoption from it? And if not, let's just talk about how we roll these things out. Do we have executive again sponsorship? Do we have alignment between each level in your not only sales team, not only one sales leader that is passionate about, I don't know, your methodology, everyone. And then do we reinforce it? Do we give enough again coaching and training real time? Not just maybe once a month enablement, get everyone in the room and how are you doing? Like everybody's doing great. But if you look at the data and the performance, you see nobody's adopting. And it's been I think, very old problem that we kind of like carried out until now. And even we are actually trying to solve that. And it's difficult because it requires that change management before even looking at any tools or any technology. How should we even go about measuring the efficacy of practice for our account managers? Like, do we have like certain KPIs in place? Since again, companies are walking through a lot of changes right now. What should we do even like there?
Yeah, before I even jump into that answer, I love what you said at the end there, is that you've got to start with your change management process before you implement something. And I think that is such a key point that people are not accustomed to. So you've got to make that commitment from the C-level down that this is where we're going. And then these are the things that we expect everybody to change. And these are the things that we're going to change to, rather than this is the thing. Hey, everybody change. I think that's such an important cultural shift that has to be made first. Otherwise it never sticks. But to your point, to your next question, there are a lot of things that are measured, and I've seen over measurement of KPIs where it is just KPI to death. It's just death by 1,000 cuts. Nobody can win. It leads to a management culture of let me find the problem, and then you do one of two things. You abandon all of it, and you're like, if numbers are good this quarter, I don't look at anything. But then when numbers start to suck, everybody better have a clean house. And that is the natural mentality that happens when you have so many KPIs. My philosophy is less is more. And what are the things that are really important? And revenue is always a KPI. That is a benchmark, but that is a lagging indicator. So you've got to look at those things that happen before the sale, and starting to look for those things using things like AI tools can really help improve and make better KPIs. Because I think for the most part, people used to measure how many activities did you have a week, how many calls did you make, blah, blah, blah. It was always quantifying the how many. And now AI, what it's allowing us to do is saying, how many quality calls did you have? How many times did you mention our new product? How many times did you speak with, how many different people in multi-threading did you speak with? And so we're really able to measure things differently that we never thought about. I so often interview people and talk to other leaders across the board, and like, yeah, our KPIs are definitely, you have to have 6 of these, 7 of these, rather than how about you just have one of these that's super successful, and it makes your quarter. It just becomes a different way to look at things. And I think that we've got to really rethink our strategy and use the new tools that are out there to help us be better.
I really love this. And I had this conversation with a client 2 weeks ago. and said, hey, this is what we want to measure. This is what we want to do. This is what we want to improve. I said, these are all amazing. They all help you get to your North Star. Let's talk about that one thing, that everybody cares about. And then these are the activities. These are the tiny things that actually help get you there. And when we don't have it, to your point, we start again bloating our I don't know, measurement system, if you will, for lack of a better word.
Do you believe your reps burn leads practicing on client calls? When it comes to giving them one-on-one coaching sessions, you just don't have the bandwidth, so you get rid of them altogether? Or maybe you notice that your team spends a lot of time on non-revenue tasks like taking notes, updating CRM, or drafting emails. These are the exact challenges we solve for other revenue leaders like yourself. With SellMeThisPen AI Coach, you can offer your reps role-play sessions at scale while automating one-on-one coaching sessions based on your best practices and methodology. Also, AI will take care of all their non-revenue tasks, like note-taking, CRM updates, draft the email for them, so they can focus on constant improvement while you're focusing on one thing and one thing only: revenue growth. If you're interested in learning more about the clients we are working with or use cases that might be beneficial to you, check us out at SellMeThisPen.ai.
Let me ask you another question, because I'm really curious about this one. Tell me about some of the pitfalls or failures that you've noticed when it comes to handout. So you have either, again, a more mature organization, you have CSMs, again, they get that early adoption and success stories in, and AM gets involved. Again, if it's a little bit less mature, you got A's handed over to, let's say, your AMs. Can you tell me what some of those problems that you've seen?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about here is like when to interject the AM, the CSM, and whose roles. And I think there's a couple of factors that go into this for me that I've seen in my own personal experience, is that it's always too late. So we talked earlier about having those conversations with the C-level, having those conversations, how hard it is to get into them later for an AM. You've got to be there from the beginning. So from that point of implementation, the first question is, when does a renewal start for a customer? It starts from the day they sign their contract. That is, you are in renewal mode from that. And unfortunately, I think that we wait far too long. You've got to be there in the beginning when they start that implementation to introduce yourself, to guide the customer through what to expect. As an AM, I'm going to be reaching out to the C-level, and I'm going to be doing check-ins to making sure you're getting the most value. And then we're going to talk about your business needs. And so that I can help tailor your experience with our product. That's got to be their tagline from in there. Otherwise, they become this strange person that they've never met, and all of a sudden 6 months into the relationship, they've developed these relationships with these super helpful people, and then you've got a salesperson, which you said earlier, people just don't want to talk to salespeople. You become a partner up front, you do the right things, business reviews, show value, ask discovery questions, all those things throughout, but you can't do it so late into the relationship. Otherwise, you become an outsider.
So what I'm hearing is this: you're saying that CSMs and AMs, they need to be in the room after sales is done. Is that what I'm getting?
They do. They're not there to do anything. Most companies would have, depending on your state, a start of some type of implementation team that is going to, if it's software, but this can apply to any product really. But for the most part, I think we're probably talking about software here. And but software, you're going to have that implementation team that's going to do all the technical things. But at that introduction point, so who do you have on the call after a purchase? You have the person that made the decision. Usually all your decision makers are there, all your technical people there. So if you do your relationship map, you're going to have all your influencers that are going to be on the call. They're going to be able to say yes. You're going to have your decision makers. Usually your economic buyer is going to be on that call. Why would you not be there to introduce yourself and to start that relationship and lay out a roadmap of expectations? That's where success starts. And that's where you start your renewal conversation. It is setting up those expectations that in 12 months, we'll be having conversations about X, Y, and Z. It's treating the customer as a partner as opposed to treating them as a client that you're going to sell something to.
I really love this. This is really, really smart. And you get introduced basically to people upfront. So there's a reason even to reach out to them individually and say, hey, this is how I'm looking at in terms of the success plans or what we learned. So to me, it sounds like that expansion and renewal starts from day one. So you intentionally, start, digging in. But as an account manager, how can we start actually, digging more without overstepping? Because we just signed an agreement. We want to make sure they're happy. Just learn, step 1 and 2 before we jump the gun and start, exploring. How would you do it? Would you, start booking calls and go for discovery or give them some space?
Yeah. So again, this comes with having. I think the word strategy, number one, has been so overused that everybody's exhausted with it. You got to be strategic, and at this point, nobody actually knows what that means. And so I'll give you a little story here. Is that we were just recently working on a renewal strategy. And in that renewal strategy, it started out as very focused on what's the timeline? When do we start talking about it? And I think that's where most of these strategies talk. Is it 6 months out? Is it 3 months out? And that certainly is a foundation of it. But then you've got to put in the data points of what actually needs to happen. So at 12 months out, when you just sign, it's that introduction. You've got to make sure that happens. And then at 3 months in after implementation is that check-in with the executive buying team. Hey, just want to check how your experience was, making sure that you're already seeing value. If you were going to be asked to renew today, would you renew? That's a checkpoint to make sure that everything went well. And then do some other things that are, obviously product specific, unique to your company, but think about things like you just bought this main product of ours. I want to introduce you to somebody. This is our VP of product. Bring them in for a show and tell and to check and to make sure they're using all of the features. And if not, show them some of the new and greater features 3 to 6 months in. That should be scheduled. And we don't do that. We do that very reactively today to problems. Oh gosh, you're having a problem. Let me bring in my VP of product so that he can fix it and escalate it and then take all my power away with this conversation. So it's the switch from being reactive to proactive is where you win. Sorry, the other way around. Stop being reactive, be very proactive and super intentional. That's where you're going to win with your customers, is that when you lead them along that journey, as opposed to how do I constantly fix your problems?
I really love this. And many of us, I would say, tend to be reactive when problems pop up. When you see people are not answering anymore, when the usage, drops, and then we panic. Hey, let me introduce you to the X, Y, and Z. And do they even commit to get involved at that, at that point? And it goes back to what we talked about earlier about change management. And being strategic needs that, again, change management from the top, that, hey guys, this is happening. This is the new way. This is the new playbook, whatever you want to call it. Everybody's going to be hands-on about this account. Quick question. I don't know if it's even, maybe it's not even relevant, but I'm curious about it. We have some accounts that we already screwed up. Just imagine we are just introducing a real AM motion to the company. A sold, they took care of the account, whatever shape or form. 3-4 months, before the renewal, we see engagement is going, down. We bring in, we just brought an AM. What should we do? Should we get that person involved, with those accounts? Or at what point would you say, this is a dead deal? Don't waste my new headcount's time. Let them actually start with something healthy.
Yeah, that's such a great question that I think everybody runs into. That is not a unique situation that I think everybody has been up against the wall on. It certainly depends on what caused the loss. Is it we found a cheaper option than what you have today, but we love your product? So that's a very different conversation than your product is trash and everybody hates it, nobody adopted it. When you only have 3 to 4 minutes or 3 to 4 months to fix that. So I think you need to definitely understand what it is. If they haven't given formal notice and your time's not up and you still have time to turn around, I think it's always worth the investment. I think that is your time to show all your cards for sure and be like, I am sorry. Start with, I am sorry that we didn't do these things. And I want to hear from you. I'm not trying to save this relationship, but I hope that I've earned your respect as a partner throughout the course of this enough just to say, hey, tell me what we did wrong here and how we can fix this for the future. I'd like to, you put the customer in a position of give me your opinion, tell me more about it. People do want to talk, and that can lead to turning that around very quickly. Sometimes you find it's the simplest of things that really caused this that just got escalated and blown out of proportion. So I think it's always worth saving them. I think it's worth evaluating after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tries that, okay, you're done and you're
you
good.
burn your cards.
Yeah. And the other thing I've seen, so I think a behavioral thing in managing to this, where a lot of companies go wrong, they're like, here's your book of business. It's this huge pile of customers that want to leave us, go forth and conquer. Oh, and by the way, you're penalized for everyone that churns now. Instead, we need to flip that on its head. So if you're going to do that to a new sales rep, hey, these are your target accounts. They're healthy. They're good. Go in, keep them going. You're responsible for managing those. These are your challenge accounts. You have a significant bonus tied to turning these around, but no penalty for not. So it's a very different way, I think, of leading to something for an organization. But if you want to turn these around, incent people, don't punish people in that specific situation, not in a normal AM situation.
Random question, but I'm really curious. I want to learn about this. Just imagine we're talking about enterprise deals, 6-figure, accounts, dead account, and then, all of a sudden you give it access to your new AM. You said give them a better bonus. Can you share a range? I'm just really curious about this. I know it's company by company, but just in my $100,000 deal, $150,000, account.
So if I'm a business owner, what does that $100,000 cost me? And how much is it worth to save it? At that point, I'd pay a lot of money to have that saved if it was going out the door. So over incentivize on that specific KPI that you're talking about there. You're talking about total turnaround. You have to be careful because, it's something like this, but that I'd be like, hey, here's your 20% bonus. Make it a significant investment. You will see a very different AM come out when you have significant revenue tied to that, and escalate it. So if you save them for 12 months, hey, here's your 10% bonus. You sign them for 2 to 3 years. Here's your escalator that goes upon that. So turn it into a $300,000 deal over 3 years, which then becomes a growth opportunity for expansion.
Love it. I want to continue this conversation for an hour or so, but we have some rapid fire questions that I want to make sure I ask you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add that I didn't actually, touch during this conversation that must be said?
I could talk about this for hours. I think for me, there's a lot of things happening in the account management right now that I hope that people start to evolve to. Even like the funniest story, I was just talking about this yesterday, is just the use of AI in general for account management. And I talk about, I don't mean the AI that comes into here's our new AI platform and here's what it does for us, because everybody accepts that. But we've got to start to become more efficient in what we do, and using things like Gemini and ChatGPT. All those things need to become very acceptable practices in what we do on a daily basis. And I see it like AI is like with the GLP-1s right now. It's like everybody takes it, but you want to say, no, I did it through diet and exercise. It was all me. And it's not. we've got to get this out in the open that this is the way of the future. I have so many reps that I've worked with that have want to not take credit for using AI. We've got to make this normalized, and we've got to get it out there that we can't think of all the things, and we need to take our thoughts and learn how to use AI to be successful, because our competitors are. And those that are doing it better than we are. So I think that is something that has got to change, and it has got to be a heavy investment for our teams to be able to be successful.
I love it. Look, again, going back to exactly what we discussed early on. So change management, being intentional, being proactive, about things moving forward. All right. Before we get to rapid fire questions, I forgot, our previous guest, you had Tesfai. She's a RevOps professional. She asked you a question. I don't know, again, this is not relevant to this topic, but I want to hear it from you. How do you think the RevOps is going to evolve in the next 3 years?
So I think that RevOps has been such a generalized term for so long that poor RevOps, they just like everything that goes wrong, let's just throw it under RevOps and you guys will fix it. And I think that RevOps is going to have to peel away some layers. So they can't be all things to all people. They can't be L&D. And I think that especially for sales L&D, it's all been tapped under RevOps in most companies. That's something they need to be doing. RevOps needs to be very focused on our tools and acceleration of what we do. They need to make us go faster. So as we talked about earlier today, it is early in the conversation, it's about that change management. When the company says change management, they need to be in charge of it because they are that central hub that is making your sales team move forward. They have to enforce those things. They have to back it up through whatever type of collateral that you're sending out. You've got marketing coming in, but they need to manage that collateral. They need to manage your Salesforce, or whatever instance that you're using so that it is productive and it gives you the data and insights that you need. And also acquire the tools and make sure that everybody is enabled on those tools. So I think that right now, there's, depending on the size and scale of your company, smaller companies, RevOps is going to be the go-to for all things. In these larger companies, I think it needs to start to become very specialized. And so that it can service the revenue organization and not necessarily the whole organization as it does in many companies right now.
That's another great topic. I think I'm going to steal it from you. Just when I have another RevOps professional, I'm going to start talking about that. All right,
yeah.
Rapid fire.
I'm not
questions.
the expert on that, so for sure.
But I love your perspective. Give me quick answers to these questions. Account management leaders will be more effective if they only.
If account management leaders will be more effective if they only embrace coaching to behaviors as opposed to checking the box of did they complete these tasks. So we've got to change from being a task-oriented management organization and digging into the behaviors and watching those behaviors change. So as we talked about early, 5 years ago is not the account manager that you need today. It is a very different persona, and it can be the same person, but it has to be a different persona that goes to market. So if you're not coaching to those behaviors and finding tools that help you be better at that and more efficient at that, that's where you're struggling.
How your career impacted your personal development?
It has been one of the things that I do with my team now, because this is how it happened to me, is I had some really great leaders from the time that I started when I was working in college. I've had great mentors that I'm so grateful for. And they always tied my personal development to my professional development. I've always taken that with me. And whether that be tied to a financial decision that I wanted in my personal life, to buy a home, to buy a car, to do something, it's been tied to my work goals. And I learned to intertwine those things at very early in my career, and it has always stuck with me. And then it's, your goals evolve as you get older. Those goals have been to be a better leader, but also through that, I've also become hopefully a better person. I won't say that I have been, but I think other people think I have been. I think that they're very intertwined. I've never been one to totally separate the two, because it's just, for me, it's just impossible. It's too much of a big part of your life.
I love that. My last question. Our next guest is Gail Behum, and she's the head of enablement at Headway. Do you have any questions for her?
I do, and it goes back to what we talked about earlier, is the future of enablement. And I hate to conflate this with L&D because it's two different things. But when you're talking about enablement, and specifically sales enablement, where do you see the focus shifting from pre-sales to post-sales, and what are you going to be doing differently with your post-sales teams when it comes to enabling them for success in the next few years. I think I think it starts with them, and it starts with the leadership making the right choices and change management. But how are we going to make that stick?
I love that. All right. Look, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you guys got some value from this episode. Before I let you go, can people reach out to you and how?
Yeah, absolutely. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn and we will get connected.
There you have it. All right, guys. Then it's done. Until
Michael, you're
next
the best.
time. You're the best. I appreciate you, Tim. Bye for now.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.